So here we are for Austen Month, covering the novel which contains one of Austen's most divisive heroines, Emma. Emma was published in 1815, being the last novel published when Austen was alive. While everyone loves Pride and Prejudice, some critics would say that Emma was Austen's masterpiece with her technique of having the narrator share her mindset and delusions. The use of the technique, known as free and direct. When you think about it, we are dragged through the story following Emma's thoughts and perceptions of the world, so it's the world according to Emma. If she doesn't like someone, she'll try to make us think that. Perhaps before we go on, we should give a quick rundown of the plot of the novel, so we're all on the same playing field and share a basic understanding of plot and character before we start nattering about it.
Emma Woodhouse's former governess, Miss Taylor, has recently married Mr. Weston, a match that Emma states that she has masterminded. Now bereft of her companion, Emma now lives in the family estate of Hartfield with her only hypochondriac of a father as company, but benefits from regular visits from Mr. Knightley, her brother-in-law and neighbour. She is introduced to Harriet Smith, a girl with unknown parentage, and she befriends her and makes Harriet her new project to distract herself with. She persuades Harriet to reject a proposal of marriage from Robert Martin, a farmer, as she sees the match as a friendship breaker and she would much rather match Harriet with the local vicar, Mr. Elton.
After many interactions, Emma and Harriet are convinced of Mr. Elton's affection for Harriet. Mr. Knightley tells Emma that Elton is not a good choice because he's a social climber and is after a wife with a lot of money, but she ignores him. However, during the Christmas season, Harriet falls ill, unable to attend the Westons' dinner party. Due to a moment alone in a carriage, Elton confesses that he loves Emma, but is promptly rejected. Elton leaves for Bath, Harriet is heartbroken, and Emma feels ashamed for misleading her. Soon, Jane Fairfax and Frank Churchill arrive in Highbury. Frank is the son of Mr. Weston, adopted by his controlling aunt, while Jane is an orphan and the niece of the chatty Miss Bates, a spinster. They would have grown up in Highbury with Emma had their families not witnessed tragedy. Emma does not like Jane, as she's spent her entire life hearing news of Jane and her accomplishments. However, she finds Frank very amiable. She enjoys gossiping with him, and after Jane receives a pianoforte, they believe her to have a mutual attachment to Mr. Dixon, her protector's son-in-law. Frank and Emma plan a ball together, but it is unable to go ahead as Frank is called back to his aunt.
Mr. Elton soon returns with his new wife. She is quite irritating and takes a disliking to Emma, which is returned likewise, and becomes very domineering around Jane. Soon, Frank returns and the ball goes ahead. During this, Mr. Elton snubs Harriet, so Mr. Knightley jumps in to dance with Harriet. The day after, Harriet is attacked by gypsies, and Frank saves her from them. Harriet tells Emma that she is over Mr. Elton at long last, as she is in love with another, who she cannot have. Emma believes it to be Frank because of him saving her. Mr. Knightley sees an attachment between Jane and Frank, but Emma brushes it off because of Frank's flirtations with her and her hopes for Harriet.
Later on, a selection of the characters go on an outing to Box Hill. Everyone seems to be not enjoying themselves. During a lull in conversation, Frank commands them to tell Emma one thing very clever, or two things moderately clever, or three things very dull indeed. Miss Bates, self-aware, says she would have no problem fulfilling the latter. Thoughtlessly, Emma insults Miss Bates, saying that she has to limit it to only three. The jovial energy of the party lessens after a short few words, and everyone breaks off into separate groups. Mr. Knightley reprimands Emma for her actions, and she feels guilty for a long time. Emma visits the Bateses to make amends, and is received warmly as always by Miss Bates, though Jane refuses to see her. News arrives that Frank's aunt has died, freeing him to marry Jane Fairfax. Emma is angered by Frank's actions and feels awful for everything that occurred in how it would have affected Jane. She worries for Harriet, but learns that Harriet is in fact in love with Mr. Knightley, not Frank. This upsets Emma, as she believed that if he was to marry, it would be her, finally realizing that she loves Mr. Knightley herself. Knightley confesses that he loves Emma during one of his visits, and they become engaged.
Emma worries about how the engagement will affect Harriet and her father, so she writes to Harriet to explain things and send her to live in London with her sister for a time. Emma and Knightley discuss how to manage Mr. Woodhouse and their marriage, with Knightley suggesting that he move to Hartfield. Jane and Emma reconcile over everything that has occurred, and Emma finally tells her father about her engagement, with him eventually agreeing that everything will be fine. Knightley reveals that Robert Martin and Harriet are going to get married, which delights Emma as Harriet has recovered from her lovesickness. Emma meets Frank and Jane again, with everything seeming fine between all parties. Emma seeing how much better Knightley is to Frank. Harriet returns from London. She tells Emma that she has learnt that her father is a tradesman, and she receives Robert Martin at Hartfield, but notes their relationship must now change because of their different positions. The novel ends noting that Harriet and Robert marry first, followed by Emma and Knightley, then Frank and Jane.
When first reading the book, it was nice and I liked the characters. Some more than others. I was partial to Emma and Harriet. Robert Martin was all right, and I wasn't fond of how Emma dismissed him as not being worth anything.
Emma loves her position in society, and that is clear from the word go. In a small social sphere in which everyone dotes on her, she expects everyone to bend to her whim. Thus, when she meets Jane Fairfax, her social superior, she instantly loathes her, and this explains why she dotes on Harriet the way she does, or rather the way she bosses her around like a pawn on her chessboard of love.
Emma. I like her character a lot. It's not often that you get a protagonist who seems to do everything possible to make you hate her, yet in the end you root for her happiness, whether you can say it's deserved or not. At the very least, Emma's story is about her learning that she is certainly no people expert, nor as clever as she thinks. It's a story more about growth than about romance. I have to disagree with Blue, though. Technically, Jane is not Emma's social superior, although she certainly deserves the title. Jane is from reduced circumstances and has little to recommend her but her good looks and great talent, which is unfortunately why everyone is so set on believing that she'll be a governess. If there's anything I learnt from Jane Eyre, governesses are not thought well of or as great catchers. Pretty much in this era, if you're poor, you better have a lot more going for you to make up for it. In a sense, both Miss Taylor and Jane lucked out big time.
Harriet is kind of Emma's foil in terms of class and personality. Where Emma is bold, Harriet is meek, mild, and soppy. After reading Emma back through, I noticed times where Harriet is defamed in order to make Emma seem somewhat more likable. Admittedly, it worked on me by the end because I was rooting for Emma's own happy ending too.
Speaking of characters that I relate to, Harriet Smith, a girl in poor circumstances with a good nature, innocent, needing to be led and thought as stupid. Sounds like me as a teenager, minus the being very beautiful. I really like her as a character. She's naive and easily led, which leads me to feel sorry for her since I see a lot of my younger self in her. She's thought of as less than others. While I get the class part, it's kind of shitty for the other characters to tear Harriet down in comparison to other ladies. Despite her good qualities, she's always got someone better than her.
Harriet's presence in Emma is almost as if she's Emma's poorer, illegitimate shadow. Emma could bolster her image in many an eye, but she could not improve her situation. It was Emma's lack of social awareness and selfishness that led to her discouraging Harriet's proposal from Robert Martin from the farm. Had Emma not been so far up her own behind she was watching her kidneys, she may have realised that Harriet had in fact snagged a win without her. A man? Check. A man with a plan, i.e. farm? Double check. A man and a future that is sustainable, and Harriet actually liked him? Massive win.
I'm very glad she got her own happy ending with Robert Martin, but I did wish that she wasn't so flip-floppy with her romantic feelings. She likes Robert, but doesn't realise it before her head is so consumed with Mr. Elton that she gives no one a second thought until she decides she likes Knightley because of one nice thing he did for her before he continued to act kindly to her. Similar to Elton, in that he was being nice to Emma's friend, but he didn't encourage her affections. Seriously, fuck that painting debacle.
But next, let's talk about my mum's favourite subject, men.
Woo!
Mr. Elton. Okay, he starts as slightly bearable given that Emma is so dead set on having him partner up with Harriet, but as we come to learn, he is in fact an odious, arrogant knob with very little going for him. Naturally, when he does find a wife, she is as terrible as he is, a match made in heaven. It is safe to say Emma and Harriet dodged a real Elton-shaped bullet with that one.
I hated Mr. Elton and Mrs. Elton. They are stuck-up, pretentious people who have no more business being in a house than a giant shit does. It is good writing, as we are obviously not supposed to like them.
Next up, a fine specimen of a man. Just joking. Mr. Frank Churchill. The cunning devil kept his engagement to Jane Fairfax a secret probably so he could go off and play hooky with any other girl he came to woo. Being a man of standing, he believes that the sun shines from his backside. But truthfully, he's just odious as Mr. Elton, only prettier and with a better way of words.
Frank Churchill, when I think more about him, I realise how much of a dick he actually is. Yet nearly every single time I'm taken in with how nice he is, a sign of good writing in how we're pulled into Emma's little world where everything is lovely and no one does anything nasty or lies. However, the more and more I read or watch Emma, the less and less I like him from the start. Jane deserved much better than his sorry ass.
Now on to the best one, Mr. Knightley.
Yes! Cheer with us.
Cheer.
Woo! Yes!
The only decent man is in fact Mr. Knightley. Though he is older than Emma, he proves time and time again that no matter how frivolous she can be, he is there for her. He doesn't bend to her whim and instead is honest with her. This works in her favour, of course, but it doesn't stop Mr. Knightley being a fine old fellow. So the moral of the story is we should all just hook up with our dad's friends. Just kidding. Emma looked out.
Mr. Knightley was and will always be my favourite. He is caring in his own way and doesn't mince his words as much as others do. He says what he means, but manages to put it nice enough that people don't mind.
Mr. Knightley certainly is by far the best male character and love interest in this book. And more often than not, he is right. He has the better eye for people. He knew Harriet and Robert were a decent match, even if he thought it hasty. He saw the truth of Elton, Frank, and even Jane, but did his best to be cordial to them. However, well, I find the relationship between him and Emma to lack a certain fire, a passion in the books. It's definitely portrayed better on screen. I wholeheartedly think that they are a perfect couple, though, as they balance each other out well, and Emma desperately needed that person who would check her stupidity.
Instantly, we get Austen's sarcasm and charm with the depictions of Mr. Woodhouse and his lovely, yet delightfully naive and self-assured daughter Emma.
I've got to say that I was introduced by a TV adaptation, so I liked going back to the book and getting, in a sense, the extended cut of the story. Granted, there are times where this book meanders with long talks about health, doctors, and gossip that didn't add or matter much, even if it did add to the characterization of some key side characters. I get why certain conversations are dropped in adaptations, as they often bore me when reading, as I just wanted the plot to get on.
I think Emma does have a point on what she says to Harriet. I think it's right to think that if you're in doubt of your feelings towards someone when it comes to marriage, you should say no. It's actually quite a modern mindset, since everyone seems to say, and Harriet should have said yes, as she doesn't know if she'll get an offer again from anyone else. It says a lot about Emma and how little she knows of other people and their lives, since she thinks Harriet has the same position as her, being very eligible for marriage to any man of high standing and not needing to marry to save her position. Emma is quite a modern character in that she openly flaunts her unwillingness to marry, but still enjoys being romanced, and is only persuaded to marry after she falls in love, and once things are set to make her father comfortable, she refuses to marry Knightley unless things are done a certain way. And good on Knightley to be willing to give up his own home, his power, and independence to be with Emma. Like, damn, you wouldn't see that happening much if both parties had fancy houses.
If you are anything like me, it took me a while to actually like Emma. The movie makes her a hell of a lot more likable, but in the book, she is snippy and actually quite manipulative towards people to get what she wants. Mr. Knightley is the only one who sees through her facade.
So, I really hate Box Hill. No matter the format, I cannot stand it. I always have a physical reaction to it. I hate reading it. I hate looking at it. I can't even stand to listen to it. I probably looked like a right prat in the cinema when we watched the 2020 Emma movie. I admit that it's great writing and it's needed for the story. It wouldn't be Emma without Box Hill. I hate how she's encouraged into insulting someone who she's known all her life by someone who she's known for a few months. How on earth did she forget everyone telling her to be nice because of Miss Bates's reduced circumstances? She has no excuse to hurt her like that. It wasn't her being lost in the moment. It was pure malice. I suppose my biggest reason for hating Box Hill is that, well, I relate to Miss Bates. I can see myself in her character. That's certainly a strange thing for a 22-year-old to say, that she's like the chatty old maid who lives in a small cottage with her elderly mother. Before even knowing the novel or the story as a teenager, I was always worried of boring people with my chatter and interests, to the point that I would sit and let my friends lead conversation, then dare pipe up about my interests, because whenever I'd try, I'd be dismissed. I'd always worry that I would get my own Box Hill moment where I'm told that no one really cares about what you have to say because all you speak about is boring stuff all the time. I suppose Miss Bates had it better than I, as she at least had neighbours and friends who would humour her.
The great thing about Emma is that you can easily experience the story twice. The first you go through, you learn all of the twists, as Emma does, and are surprised along the way. The second time, you're able to easily pick up on what you missed the first time, like Elton's designs on Emma, as well as seeing other characters in a new light, like with Jane and Frank.
On this, a second read-through of the book, I realised that I'm noticing things that I missed the first time round. Though largely my love and hate of certain characters remains the same, Mr. Woodhouse seems very nervous about certain things, like wedding cake. But this shows a great deal of care for his friends. Everything is a lot deeper after a second read-through. Something I have thought about while rereading, and going through the story again, is that Emma's sister is much like her father, especially at Christmas when they both freak out due to snow. And not even that much fucking snow! It goes to show that Mr. Woodhouse raised his daughters to be the same as him, but only one turned out this way.
Okay, let's move to the final thoughts, where it's going to be a complete and utter shitstorm.
I have some final thoughts.
Go for it.
With regards to passion in the book, I know exactly what you mean. 'Cause you got to remember, everything looks way better on like, because obviously I love Anna Taylor-Joy, who played Emma in the most recent film adaptation.
Yeah, the 2020 movie. Yeah,
stunning, beautiful. So like that was super like passionate. Their like interlude.
So
but, like,
much hand touching, like
so much
know.
it's all about the hands.
It's all about the hands and the bum. It's all about the bum. Excellent bum.
The bum.
Amazing.
Anyway, but like even in Pride and Prejudice, like there wasn't like a big passionate scene where they snog each other's face off. That doesn't happen. This isn't Bridgerton, you know.
At least like in Pride and Prejudice, you feel like a connection more in their dialogue romantically compared to with Emma and Knightley. Like Emma and Knightley, it's very much like mentor student friends. It's not like I love you, absolutely. Whereas at least with like Lizzie and like I forgot his name.
Darcy.
Yeah, thank you. At least with Lizzie and Darcy, the whole thing is that like he's like, I love you most ardently. She's like, no, absolutely not. I hate you. And then it's actually, no, I think about it. No, I actually quite like him. Might have been because I saw his sick house, but you know, he's actually not that bad.
I saw his massive home.
Yeah,
you're forgetting the wet shirt.
That's just in the adaptation though.
I'm aware.
The shades of Pemberley to be thus polluted.
Anyway, we're going off about Pride and Prejudice.
Yes, let's bring this back. That's a different.
Sorry.
That's the thing though. It's like at least with P&P, the main like love interests, you see they're into each other, or at least like you see like a more romantic dynamic. Whereas with these two, nah. No.
But like with regards to like kind of remember like proper Regency, and Austen herself didn't exactly have like the biggest like romance, like she never ended up getting married. And even though she like probably had like romances in her life, like maybe this is the way it's kind of feels so like limited is because is reflective of that, you know.
Most likely, yeah. It's interesting though, because like when you read the other books, you can see there being like a clear attachment between the characters, but not so much in this one.
Yeah.
Is anyone actually in love in this one?
Does anyone think that maybe Emma's attachment with Mr. Knightley was an afterthought?
A little.
Well, yeah, because like as soon as she found out that Harriet was into him, she was like, "No, never! If he was to marry someone, it would be me because I'm more appropriate."
Because we have this like she builds Mr. Knightley up as this kind of like stately bachelor, good-willed, yeah, but very bachelor, and the fact that he's very fiercely independent. He hasn't married before. He's older than her. He's had more than enough chance to. And like some people might even swing that to be a little bit strange, but obviously this was like time period thing. So, but like, you know what, Emma, you go off, son, girl, you go off.
No, I'd agree with you on that. It does seem like a bit of an afterthought because it seems rushed.
Oh, actually, think about that. Think about the whole thing with Little Women with Joe. That was done because the people who were publishing it were like, so who's Joe ending up with? I don't want to end up. No, she has to end up with someone. She's a woman in a book. She has to end up with someone. Marry her off now.
So it's that whole thing of it could have been done purely to have Emma end up with someone. But I mean, even if you think of it that way, what better person for Emma to end up with anyway?
Than someone who would tell her, Emma, honey, you're being an idiot. Stop it.
Yeah, because there's this bit where you were saying it's when after Box Hill, and like Knightley gives her a sorry, I see Dragon's face. She's not approving of this conversation. But
it's just Box Hill.
It's Box Hill. It's traumatized her, bless Dragon. But poor Miss Bates, she gives her Mr. Knightley just give her a proper like tongue lashing, you know. Like, so it kind of leaves you up to this path that maybe it's like maybe she does love him, but there's some kind of like dedication there for Mr. Knightley, being that you remember he's friends with Mr. Woodhouse. If you read into it a bit more, there might be more of a kind of who else is going to marry Emma.
Yeah, because she's very much a I don't want to marry anyone type of person, and then suddenly she changes her mind.
She changes her mind a bit too quickly for my liking.
Yeah, because up until Harriet's like, oh no, actually, like I love Miss Knightley. She's all like, she's pretty much like, oh, I don't care that like Frank's marrying Jane. Like I thought I might have been in love with him, but I don't mind. I'm not actually in love with him. I wasn't caring whether he married me or not.
So maybe if you I don't know, if you wanted to read into it a bit more, obviously the movies make them a lot more like, here's the romance, here's the doodah. But when you're reading it, Austen kind of, because she does things very backwardsly sometimes, then like if you don't quite catch it the first time round, like you said with the reread, you'll get it the second time round.
Yeah.
Like sometimes subtle is subtle enough that it flies straight over your head. But it's the same with Persuasion. When I read that, the like heavy, very, very subtle like inclinations of like affection and the romance there's a lot of stuff that you will miss. It's only up until you read the letter he's like, I have all these feelings for you and I've actually never been over you, and I'm like, you know what, that's a mood. I can see that for you. You're a hot captain who just wanted a hot lady. I get that for you.
And you never got over the one hot lady that stole your heart in the first place.
Oh, rip my heart. But yeah, another note. Just because I think it might be an interesting conversation. Okay. Harriet Smith. Maybe it's just Jane Austen, or maybe it was the fact that after seeing Anna Taylor-Joy do such a good job as Emma, does anyone else find Harriet Smith a smidge really irritating?
Yeah.
I think in a sense, if Dragon finds her irritating, it's because she hates her younger self. But she also feels sorry for her. That's the whole problem.
I feel sorry for Harriet, but yes, in times she was really, really annoying for me because it's like, dear God, woman, do you not have any common sense? Did God just skip that out? Did he run out of common sense when making you?
But we got to remember, she's like so impressionable, and Emma's just confident, noble lady.
Can't just be that stupid.
Oh, dude, I put ice in the bin today. Even smart people can be stupid sometimes.
Oh yeah, like you're working on getting a doctorate, so that's
yeah, I am. I was like, that won't make me fucking melt. I'm such a bloody melt myself.
Blue, a published author putting ice in a bin.
And yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Whoop whoop. So what do you think, Lime? You have been quiet on the Harriet Smith front.
Harriet. Yeah, she can be super annoying. Like, the thing that always bugged me was just like how she was so kind of flip-floppy with like who she's in love with, because she clearly likes Robert, but then she's so easily persuaded, oh no, you're not into Robert at all, what are you talking about? And then she gets so consumed with the greatest dick bag on earth that she completely like forgets that there was a guy who actually liked her and wanted her. And it's only because Mr. Knightley's all like, that guy snubbed you to make Emma happy. I'm going to dance with you because he's being a dick and that's like the worst thing he could have done to you. So come dance with me. And she's all like, oh, I'm in love with you now. Like, no wonder Emma thought she was in love with Frank, because what Frank did on paper is a lot more romantic than come dance with me, instead of I have saved you. I've saved you from these evil people who are trying to rob you. Is no, come dance with me.
I think that was like part of that was to do with the fact that, remember that Emma still had designs on Frank himself.
Pretty much,
yeah,
Emma fucked up everything for Harriet. Like,
I think Emma can be summarized the book with Emma fucked up everything, full stop.
Emma fucked up everything. Mr. Knightley was right all along, because he said at the start he didn't think that Emma and Harriet being friends was a good idea. It worked out okay in the end. But Mr. Knightley was right, hands down.
Agreed. He was right that it wouldn't be any good, because it clearly wasn't any good for Emma, and it most certainly didn't do any good for Harriet.
No, because Emma's got her head shoved up her ass because she has no idea how the real world works. It's the world according to Emma. Everything is sunshine and roses. Miss Bates is annoying and she chats too much. I hate her. Jane Fairfax is amazing. I hate her. Frank, he's hot. He says nice things. I like him. Mr. Knightley's annoying. He keeps telling me off. she's bloody 21 and she has the mindset of a kid.
She's honestly like a very good example of, number one, having no female role model growing up besides like governesses, but like even her governesses were more like her friends, and they all would like, obviously her being the sole heiress.
Going into Miss Taylor, she's lovely as a person and lovely as a character, but as a governess, she was about as useful as a wet paper bag.
Yeah, because
when it came to Emma.
Well, because
she just rolled over.
Yeah, and her whole point is to educate Emma. And, well, like, Knightley's like, oh yeah, Emma's been trying to read, like, for years. She just won't.
Emma's been meaning to read more since she was 12 years old.
And also, like, she's never going to be as accomplished as Jane because she can't be asked.
Pretty much, yeah.
Emma dislikes anything that requires industry and patience.
Pretty much, she just likes to be frivolous and have parties and have a good time.
But she still wants the best. Wants to be the best, I mean. She still wants to be the best.
And I think it's
that's because she's the highest in Highbury.
Yeah, she's the highest young lady. And she doesn't like the fact that there are people who are better than her. Oh boy.
It's the downside of the fact that she stayed in Highbury.
Yeah, I think that's partly because Mr. Woodhouse shouted her so much. So she knows nothing of the world or other people because of that. And so she's been kind of stunted in her development. Who wants to start first with how they felt overall about the book?
You go first, lovely.
Overall with the book, I definitely see why it's such like a divisive thing, because Emma is very much a love or hate her character, and I think I like her, but she does shitty things. She's like one of those characters who you like because they're so like, well, annoying in a sense. She's intriguing. So and everything that happens is actually quite interesting too. So I actually quite like the book, despite my gripes with it.
Do you want me to go next, Dragon?
Yeah, you can go.
So yeah, overall the book's a good read. Definitely true about the like long-winded extra information about doctors and health that kind of back up Mr. Woodhouse and don't do very much else. classic Austen there. But I definitely enjoyed the story. I enjoyed kind of naivety of Emma, but like ultimately it's not my favorite Austen. That will always be Pride and Prejudice. And if I'm gonna rank them, my top three, that is, it would go Pride and Prejudice, Persuasion, and then Emma. And then, well, Mansfield Park and Northanger Abbey. Honestly, I kind of enjoyed seeing all the different dynamics at work. But honestly, ever since you know that she's gonna try and set them up, it's a loaded gun. And I'm not the kind of person who enjoys those kind of tension-ridden esque things. You all know it's gonna blow up from the word go. Because Mr. Knightley, the only voice of reason for Emma, is sure it is. So we're obviously on board with him as well. But of course, like I definitely enjoyed seeing Emma's kind of like change, I guess, but it isn't enough for me to like her.
Her journey from idiot to she's all right now.
Yeah, genuinely, that's definitely an idiot to she's all right now. Because like, if you did pit her against the other characters, even though she's the narrator, she's not your favorite. But yeah, so good book, great story, very Austen. Definitely one to read if you enjoy unreliable narrators, and like kind of, well, this one is definitely one for more the sly characters. There's a lot of underhand in this book and lots of sneaky like subtleness, but no, definitely very Regency. Anyway, Dragon, you're up.
I did enjoy Emma as a whole. It was a good read, despite my dislike of certain scenes, characters.
Well, we read it together out loud.
Oh, you guys, you're so cute.
What happened when we got to Box Hill? Like, did I have to like read it quietly, or did I have
No,
to...
you read it out loud, but I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. That's how bad her hate of Box Hill is. I had to read all of it. Well, she was just kind of like, is it a good introduction?
Yes, I do believe it is a good introduction to Austen's work, and I would recommend reading this one before reading other ones, because this actually gets you into Austen's world a bit more before developing your favorites. So if you dislike Emma, you might find another one more enjoyable.
That's actually a fair way of putting it, because Emma's very much a love-or-hate-it book, because there are some people that just hate it because of how annoying Emma is.
It means if people don't like Emma as a book, they might be persuaded to try more of Austen's works, be like, right, are all of them like this?
Yeah, that is the thing, because I find that like while the books are similar, they're not very much the same. Like when we started reading Sense and Sensibility, like it's her first published book, and you can fucking tell it is. Like,
oh yeah,
it's not as, yeah, pretty much like, not her books are like, they vary in like quality in a sense, and they're all very different.
Exactly. So I think reading Emma as a start is a good way to at least get into it. Because it's one of the softer ones to get into as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't say everything about like Austen. Like, if you don't like Emma, you will probably like one of the others.
Exactly, but I just think it's one of the softer ones to start with, because starting with something like Northanger Abbey or Pride and Prejudice, maybe even Mansfield Park, they're a bit more heavy with certain themes. Emma's a more light, easygoing one that you can just love or hate.
Yeah, and if you start with something like Pride and Prejudice or Persuasion, like, you've spoiled yourself. They're the best ones.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for watching, everyone. Like and subscribe if you liked what we've done. Thank you, dear Blue, for joining us today.
You're so very welcome. I loved it. Hanging out with my bros, Lime and Dragon, who have literally spent 99% of this time making goo-goo eyes at each other because they're in love.
There it is, confirmed in Austen Month.
I don't think Dragons. I figured you'd cut this and put it in the doodah, in the bloopers.
You have no idea how bad our end cards are. This might end up going into the actual cart.
Oh, in that case, I hope whoever's listening have a lovely day, or evening, or afternoon, or morning. Who knows? Have a great life. If you
It's
wouldn't
Austen
mind
Month.
subscribing to the Dragon and Lime OnlyFans at Lime Dragon Porn.
So I don't
Jesus.
actually Google that because I have
Oh my
no
gosh, I
idea
bet you
what
did.
will come up.
Rule 36.
No, there's no fan art of us yet, so
Now,
Right. I'm gonna commission an artist. It's gonna happen.
now.
you want to
Sorry.
plug the Patreon, Dragon? Go on, plug
Go on,
it.
Dragon. You know you can do it.
We're not doing the dance of Patreon. Plug that shit.
Don't forget, if you don't support us on Patreon, become one of our lovely beans. Please do.
Enjoy all of the art for the tears. You're gonna love the final one. That is my magnum opus.
Oh, right. Let's have a look. I am ready. By the way, I assume you're gonna cut this. If not, this is gonna be hilarious.
Ah! Why are you
Baby
talking about
beans.
that too?
Good bean. Great
What?
bean. Oh, I love it. Your beans. Baby bean. Good bean. Great bean. Wonderful bean. Magic bean. The precious bean. Oh, I love it. These are brilliant.
Ow.
And if you can't donate to the Patreon monthly, the Ko-fi.
Help me. I am the tea wench. I must make tea for the dragon. She's grumpy and she's going to burn me alive if I don't make her good tea. Help me, please. Just give a little donation. Help me.
That's awesome. Right, I need to go get an emergency ham sandwich. I'm wasting away.
Okay. So I think that's everything.
Yep, that's everything.
Line
Alright.
out.
Dragon out.
Blue out. Love you all. Mwah.
We'll
Bye.
see you next time for when we cover the 1972 version of Emma on TV. That'll be just me and Dragon, but you'll see Blue again for the video after that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Right. Bye, gang. Love you all. Sandwich time.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoy your bitch. Bye.